Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Something to Wrestle With. Bruce Prichard. Bruce, what's going on, man? How are you?
Well, you know what? It's bonus time, and this will be one, Conrad, that we get asked about an awful lot. And I'm talking about my friend Ian Stevens, who asked, he says, Bruce, I know you weren't on the plane ride from hell, but I know that there were an awful lot of crazy international plane rides and some interesting things on the road that have happened from time to time. And would we talk about a few? So I figured, well, what the hell? Why don't we just kind of open up Pandora's box a little bit and talk about some of those plane rides and just some interesting things that have happened overseas or on the road when you least expect it.
Well, I like it. Yeah, we haven't, we get lots of questions about the plane ride from hell, but as you said, we can't really talk about that one, but it does feel like lots of shenanigans have happened on those planes. Many, halcyons crushed up, many eyebrows gone missing.
A ponytail here and there, just kind of different things from time to time. But let's go ahead and start off with the plane ride from hell. No, I wasn't there, but the thing about the plane ride from hell was I was in a hotel, and I think we were somewhere near LaGuardia or Newark, one of the two. I don't even remember, but the plane arrived early in the morning, like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and my phone rang, and it was Jerry Briscoe. And Briscoe said, "Hey man, you guys in? Everybody good? Everybody safe?" He says, "Well, it was a hell of a ride, I'll tell you that." And Jerry shared some of the stories that he could remember, but I think that the funniest thing that kind of came out of the plane ride from hell was, well, getting his ponytail cut off. And of course you've heard about that one.
Well, allegedly, who cut the ponytail off?
Well, a lot of people got blamed for it. Allegedly, our good friend, Mr. Sean Waltman, out on the left coast, takes credit for it. And most people who may have or may have not witnessed it give Sean full credit for the Freebird haircut at 30,000 feet.
Talk to me a little bit about why you think that plane ride, because we've heard a lot of guys say that wasn't even the craziest plane ride. It was just the only reason that one made the news is because someone stooged it off. Did you hear the same story?
Yeah, pretty much, because there were some different ones, and there were also pockets on the planes. And what I mean by that is most of the time when we would do these international tours, you would have one big plane, and they would convert these planes for football teams, basketball teams, sports teams that consist of a lot of big guys. So all the seats are comparable to first class seats in a regular aircraft. So it's all pretty roomy. The seats are pretty big and everything, but you also have your cliques, your friends and guys that kind of hang together on the plane. And so I mean by different pockets. So in different pockets of the plane, there are different happenings. And unless you kind of make your way through the entire plane, which most people don't, or there's an incident that is just kind of over the top, then not everybody knew of everything that went on. The plane ride from hell, where allegedly Kurt Hennig and Brock Lesnar got into it and fell into the emergency door. Well, everybody saw that. That kind of woke everybody up and out of their stupor to think, holy shit, we're going to die. Because who's going to break these two big bastards up? And they're getting close to everything. So that's, like you said, yeah, somebody stooged the fucking thing off, and people were talking about it more so than normal.
Well, allegedly, who stooged that off?
I don't know who.
I mean, can you allow me another volley and just freestyle a guess?
Well, sir, I do not know who all was on that plane, but I can only imagine.
Yeah, that's the rumor and innuendo that I hear.
Was that close?
Tell us about some other famous airplane rides. Do you remember there being a time where maybe, possibly, perhaps the Nasty Boys took off 1, 2, 3 kids' eyebrows and he wound up with an action figure card with no fucking eyebrows?
That might have happened. Yeah, that might have happened. I didn't witness that. It's funny though, when you talk about shit like that, of things, and when you said the Nasty Boys, I immediately went to not an international trip, but an actual just a normal transcontinental trip or what have you, in the States, where there was a gentleman sitting in first class who was of a particular nuisance, kind of, one of those guys, very entitled and kind of assholian in his way, and like, ugh, I'm on the plane with wrestlers. And this guy settles down in his first class seat and takes his shoes off. And when he takes his shoes off, he just kind of leaves them there underneath the seat, and then he proceeds to pass out. The guy goes to sleep. When he wakes up on the other side, he had one shoe that was where he had left it that might have had an extra present in it of a turdish substance, kind of smelly. And the other shoe was missing, never to be found. And when the plane landed, it was in the middle of winter. And the particular destination, I think they were going to either Minnesota, Minneapolis, or Chicago. But as the story goes, this guy had one shitty foot and the other shoe was gone. And they remember seeing him outside trying to hail a taxi with one shoe on and just, the sock in the other one. So there were things like that. That particular one could be accredited to the Nasty Boys if legend were to be believed, but that was a Vince McMahon thing. He always would, if someone took their shoes off on the plane, most of the time they would lose one.
Chat me up about Vince McMahon on a plane, because you've told us the Vince McMahon, Ted DiBiase story where the guy will put the cigarette out and he offers him all this cash and you realize, oh my God, Vince McMahon is actually the $1 million man. Any other interesting Vince McMahon on a plane stories you can share with us?
Okay, I'm going to share a couple of them with you. But I think one of the scariest, funniest at the same time was, Vince is a big guy, and Vince wrestled in high school and in college. So a big, strong bastard, likes to work out. And there's this innate tick in some of us that you always have to test the toughest guy in the room and see what he's really got. And on this particular flight, Kurt Angle was on the plane and Vince was feeling extra frisky. So Vince had been kind of pushing Kurt to where eventually the plane was separated into two different sections. And we were in the front half of the plane, and it was myself and Undertaker in one row. Vince was there with some other folks. Can't even remember who the hell else was up there because I was passed out most of the way. But Undertaker had gone to sleep, and he was on the aisle. I was on the window on the left side of the plane. And Vince had been pushing Kurt the whole plane. Come on, pal. Come on, Olympic boy. And finally tried to hook Kurt Angle. And Kurt responded in kind. And he wasn't trying to hurt Vince, but he was just getting Vince off of him to let Vince know that, hey, I don't want to be fucked with right now, or just, no, you're not going to hook me in front of everybody. Well, as this is all going on, it's going on in the aisle right next to us. Undertaker, who's been asleep through this whole thing, wakes up. And when he wakes up, he looks over and he sees Kurt Angle basically attacking Vince. Is all in his mind. That's what's happening. Taker jumps up out of his seat, grabs Kurt, and front face locks Kurt. Now I'm awake and I've been seeing this whole thing. So I'm trying to keep Taker from attacking Kurt and Kurt to react in kind. And then we might have a whole big melee, but Taker being the big, once I was like, no, dude, man, it's cool. It's cool. They were just fucking around. He was like, oh, never mind. Release Kurt. And Kurt's like, what the fuck was that? And there were always fun times like that. But I remember one particular plane ride. We were going overseas, and it was in a brand new plane. And the lining of the plane was white suede. Beautiful fucking plane. And I think this was either the first or the second flight that this plane had ever flown. So we get on the plane and we were going to Right TV all the way over, whatever, 8 hours to England. Well, when we get on the plane, Raw had already been written and Paul Heyman was doing SmackDown at the time. And Paul wanted this time with Vince alone, which none of us were objecting to. We're like, hey, great, man. You go for it, big boy. So we went over Raw. He gave it the thumbs up. And then Paul's like, I have this. And we were all excused. Well, I go to my seat and Jerry Briscoe and I are sitting there and I took some medication to help me relax on the plane and maybe get some sleep. The flight attendant came by, gave us each a bottle of red wine, some Merlot. We each had a bottle. And they had red Solo cups, the big cups, for us to drink out of. So I poured myself a glass of wine. I left the bottle on the table. Jerry Briscoe poured himself a glass of wine, filling up the red Solo cup, kept his bottle on the table. And about 30 minutes into the flight, I see Heyman coming back. And he's walking like only Paul Heyman can walk, almost doot, 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 but a Jewish version. And Heyman comes back and leans in and says, he would like to speak with you now. So why does he want to speak with me, Paul? He has requested your presence to take a look at the show. I'm like, Paul, you told me you fucking had this, man. I've already gotten ready to go to bed. I'm fucking half a bottle of wine in. I've already taken my Ambien. I took something else to relax a little bit. I'm in no condition to go up and write TV right now. He wants you now. So my table is down. I've got a full glass of wine and a half a bottle of wine. I flip the table up, not thinking because I'm in another world at this point. The wine goes all over the white leather plane. Goes all over me, goes all over Jerry Briscoe. I'm so pissed off. I get out and I pull my bag down. I change clothes right in the middle of the aisle because I was soaked with wine. And I go up and I'm pissed. And I said, yeah, what can I do for you? And he says, sit down, pal. And Heyman sits down and goes, I don't need you anymore. And he sent Paul to the back, and I had to spend the remaining 5 or 6 hours with Vince rewriting all the television. And when we finally landed, because I don't do the computer thing, I don't type as we hand write everything out. He says, all right, get that typed up, get it out. We got to go. Because the production meeting was in 2 hours and that was it. And I just was like, what the fuck? But those are, kind of some of the things that would happen on the planes from time to time. And from time to time, we would have air marshals called on us on commercial flights and things like that. But I think it was, you're going to a foreign country or on the way home, man, you've been in a foreign country away from your family. It's hard to communicate over there because they didn't have international phones at the time and shit like that. So you're frustrated, you're grumpy, and you just want to disappear. So I think maybe that just adds to the drinking and everything else to kind of disappear for that flight to get back home.
What about Shawn Michaels? Shawn Michaels and the Clique ever raise any hell on an international flight?
You know what? I don't know that I was ever on an international flight with Shawn back in the day. I remember there was a time that a Freebird might have mistaken one of the McMahons for the bathroom. And as he was kind of undoing his pants, Triple H was on the flight, and Triple H and I were seated equally away from the incident about to take place, and both jumped up at the same time and showed Michael where the proper bathroom was. But you know what? I don't remember ever being on one of those, and I don't think Shawn was there for a lot of that. The international plane rides, if you will, of the charter ones, and those charter ones didn't come until really probably the late 90s. and in that time frame.
Did you ever hear about, Ric Flair maybe doing the robe trick on a plane?
God, I've seen Ric Flair do the robe trick so many times on planes. It's hard to differentiate one from the other. But yes, Rick liked to go into a bathroom and come out just wearing his robe. And when I mean just wearing his robe, I mean nothing else on but his robe, his knee-high socks, and pair of Ferragamo shoes. Never got old. Well, I guess it did, but still, same time, it was always a chuckle to see other people's reactions for the first time.
Did anybody play drinking games on these international flights? Like, was somebody keeping score somewhere?
You know, the only the only time that officially people keeping score was a flight from Newark to, I think we went Germany or France. And Jerry Briscoe and I had got on the plane, and it was a really cool plane because it had pockets, and it was me, Jerry Briscoe, Kurt Angle, and I think Christian. And we had two seats, and they were facing each other. So it was the four of us kind of facing each other, and they had Beaujolais wine. And as we got on the plane, Tony Gurria walked in and said, they have Beaujolais wine. Very, very nice wine. And we proceeded to introduce Kurt and Christian to the finer art of drinking red wine. We put everyone to sleep and drank every bottle of wine on the plane. And that was at the point that, and keep in mind, Kurt Angle and Christian were drinking with us. But Briscoe and I got blamed for drinking like 16 bottles of wine. And we were kind of taken off the plane rides for a little while, or at least told not to drink anymore. But we were harmless. We're fun drunks.
16 bottles?
Might have been a little. Yeah, I think that was the number. Because they had so many cases on. And yeah. The bitch counted, stooged on us.
Mm-hmm. You ever see?
She's a stooge.
Stephanie ever make any of those trips?
Every once in a while, Stephanie would make those trips in later years in the 2000s. Steph made. I think I was on. God, I really think I was only on one trip with her. No. And that was a trip where we came back to Cincinnati and John Cena, the rapper, was born. And that was the only one. And she sat up in the front section of the plane on her computer the entire time.
Talk to me about The Undertaker. You know, he's always been regarded as being sort of the locker room leader. You ever see him get out of pocket on a plane like this, or have to get anybody else straightened up? He told us the Kurt Angle story, but he ever have to put his foot down?
Not really. I think a lot of times his presence was enough that people, out of respect to him, wouldn't really get too far out of line. But Tank would enjoy having either few bottles of Jack or a couple beers or some Jack Daniels and just relax and chill out on the plane. But so that's the thing. It never really got out of hand to where people were legitimately fighting or grappling in the aisleways. That's why I think that the plane ride from hell was romanticized so much, that 30,000 feet, that Brock and Kurt were grappling, and they probably tied up a little bit and bumped into a wall. But by the time they landed and everything else that had happened, shit would happen. But British Bulldog used to like to take the Clippers out from time to time on international flights. And
how about a guy like Andre the Giant, Big Show, or Yokozuna? How were they able to manage being on an international flight like that when they weren't? I mean, they probably didn't have the most accommodating bathroom situation on the plane, right?
They didn't go. Andre would take enemas before he would go overseas. and he just didn't go to the bathroom overseas or on the flight. He obviously went to the bathroom overseas, but not on the plane ride, and he could hold it forever. So it wasn't really an issue. And Yoko, the same thing. I don't know that Yoko went to the extent of taking enemas before he got on a plane, but Yoko just didn't go to the bathroom and would get on the plane and try to go to sleep. And no, out of respect, nobody really fucked with him.
Seriously, how many fucking enemas would it take for Andre the Giant? I mean, was he able to do his own enemas, or did he have to have help with the enemas? Was that Tim White's job too?
Over, wrong hole. Yeah, I'm not sure whose job it was. I would imagine Andre was skilled at it. Probably would be able to give himself his own enemas.
Talk to me a little bit about, the legend, the rumor and innuendo is that for some of the bigger guys, you guys would just have to like throw up like a privacy curtain, like we've seen in some planes before, and just sort of shit right there in the aisle.
Who would shit in the aisle if Yoko had to go?
I don't know.
It could happen, but no. I don't remember anyone ever shitting in the aisle. That would just be gross, Conrad.
Well, listen, you just told a story about a guy shitting in shoes. I didn't figure.
Yes, but he went to the bathroom to do it.
Okay. Well, you also told a story about Ric Flair helicoptering his penis around in the aisle.
Is that a bad thing?
Anybody ever join the Mile High Club on one of these planes that you know of?
That I witnessed? No.
Well, no, I didn't ask that. I didn't ask that you witnessed.
Oh, there were rumors and shit about it. People said they did.
Spill it.
Nah, there were rumors Scott Hall did. There were rumors Flair did. There were rumors a lot of people did, but I don't know if they actually ever did. I think the story was bigger than anything that ever happened.
Yeah. When it came to these planes, do you remember there being a situation where any of the guys really got tied up and it was like a real fight for real? There were hard feelings when they landed.
I think that the closest thing to that was Michael Hayes being pissed off that his hair got cut and wanting to fight everybody. At which time Jerry Briscoe just threw his bag and said, well, let's just fight, Michael. You want to fight? Let's fight. And, I think Michael's about as close as it came to anybody really getting boo-boo face and upset.
What about Shane? You know, we talked about, Stephanie, we talked about Vince, Shane ever getting any shenanigans on a plane?
Well, see, here's the thing. No, he didn't, because they didn't always travel on the charter planes. Vince did. I can count probably 2 times that Vince ever went on the big charter. One time for Steph, and Shane maybe once or twice. By the early 2000s, by 1999, 2000, they had the plane. So they took their own plane over, and they would load that thing up going over, and then you had a weight limit going back. And that was great because only a few people, if you were in the right weight bracket to go back, you could leave right after the show, and you would be in New York by about 5:00 in the morning to be able to get on a plane and get home just about the time everybody else is boarding a plane in the UK to get home.
Talk to me a little bit about, and I don't know, if this will ever come up, but there's been lots of rumor and innuendo that guys have heat for not really following wrestler protocol. On a charter plane like this, does everybody have assigned seats, or do they know where's acceptable and where's not to sit? Are there certain seats that are always claimed? Like, according to the legend, we always heard that Taker sort of ran the back of the bus crew. Was there like a designated Taker seat on the plane?
No, guys got there and they sat with their friends. And if you had, your buddies, you'd probably save seats and say, hey, so-and-so's sitting here. But everybody boarded as a group. There were no assigned seats. It was all open seating. There were no seats that were better than any other. And you sat with your friends.
How often did you guys have the same crew? Was it always the same crew, the same pilot, the same staff?
Oh, no. I don't think we ever did. Usually it was always different crews, different pilots, and different flight attendants. It probably would have been a lot better if you did have the same crew. that knew what the hell to expect. Because it was always new and you'd always have to kind of go through a breaking in process with them.
That's what I wanted to talk about. Tell me a little bit about that. Do you remember one person in particular or an incident in particular where you guys maybe drove someone nuts?
Yeah, they all probably went nuts, but I think the biggest thing was getting guys fed. You know, they get on, they're hungry, they're grumpy and they're tired. And when you'd have these late night flights and shit, just being able to get everybody fed, and guys, oh, I'm hungry, I want to be fed. And the food was shitty airplane food. It was grilled chicken breast and pasta. It was the same shit, and they had a lot of it, but that was probably the biggest learning curve, was who's the drinkers, who wants more food, and just the speed of getting everybody out there. It wasn't a traditional, like a commercial flight. It was, as soon as we're up in the air, get them fed, get them drinks, and hopefully they'll go to sleep.
Do you remember, anybody being, you know, like to the point where they were threatening to land the plane, like because someone was so wild or out of pocket and the staff or the crew was just sort of fed up and over it?
No, never that bad. And again, it was never really that bad. I think that the folklore and legend that people have made it out to be, it was like a professional sports team. Everybody traveling together. They all know each other, having a good time, having fun with each other. But it wasn't nearly as out of control as people would like to imagine in their minds. It was no more out of control than, you know, a commercial flight with a bunch of the boys on it. Just more fun and a little louder.
Well, anything else you want to mention here about some of these long international flights? I know that lots of shenanigans happen, but you're going to deny that some of that happened, and it wasn't that bad. Anything else interesting or fun?
Well, it wasn't. I mean, of things that you're asking me what I witnessed, you know, it really wasn't that bad. And maybe because there were more of us on the plane. And I think that sometimes especially if Vince is on the plane, with a few exceptions, guys are going to mind their P's and Q's. So it was fun, but it was, I think for the most part, that kind of covers a lot of it. And it's guys always traveling together, being confined to a small space, and you must coexist, and you make the best out of it and have fun with it.
Well, I had fun talking about this. I know we couldn't ever really get to the plane ride from hell, but I'm glad we got to touch on it a little bit and catch up with all the other flights. It's been a heck of a year for us, and I appreciate you hanging in there with us. And I know that Bruce has had a lot of personal stuff going on in the family, and we appreciate your patience with that. But I'm excited, man. I'm encouraged with the support that you guys have shown us, and I'm ready for 2019, man.
As am I, and I thank you all so very much. I love you. And
see you next time right here at Something to Wrestle on Patron. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.